I'm ready for my next guest, and my team is ready to bring them up. So this is a guest who's been on before and wearing a Nacho swag, which I love. Share with us what you do to help dentists cry less inside and who you are.
I dressed up for you today, Paul.
Thanks.
This is me dressing up on a snow day. I'm Dr. Laura Brenner. I have my business is Lolabees Career Coaching, and basically I practiced dentistry for 10 years and I was very unhappy and I quit. And it was the right choice for me. It was very difficult. And, through that process, I realized that life is too short to waste it being unhappy. And we should all go for what we want in life, no matter what that looks like. And there's no obstacle that's too big, especially when it comes to leaving dentistry. So now I help other dentists design their dental careers on their terms, whether that's leaving dentistry completely, staying in and designing a unique way of practicing, or getting a side gig. I love the side gig. Dental Nachos started as a side gig, right?
Sure. Yes, it did.
It's the best vehicle. So whatever it is, just doing what you want and defining success on your terms, how you would define it.
Treatment plan on success. I like visuals. So I brought what I call the cry inside monster. So this is how dentists feel when patients say, why doesn't my insurance cover 33 veneers? And you want to say, you only have 32 teeth, you crazy person, but you can't. When the class 2 ring thingy flies across the room and pings on the floor and you don't have a backup. There's so many things that make us cry inside. And I say happiness in dentistry can be dosage dependent, right? It can be dosage dependent. Someone could be working 5 days a week and not be happy. And then they work 2 days a week and they are happy. And, you help dentists with this. Give them some context, because dentists can tend to be an all or none type of personality. I don't like being a dentist. I'm going to quit tomorrow. And I think you would probably say, hey, slow down. Let's talk with us. Just walk us through, what are some of your clients coming to you with, why they're crying inside, and how you kind of show them a potentially different world where they smile more and cry less?
Well, there's a spectrum. And there are certain people who love dentistry, and that's awesome. I think we all wish we loved it, right? We all chose dentistry for all the right reasons. And then sometimes you get here and it isn't what you want. And then there are people who like you said, it's dose dependent. They like it enough, but they're really stressed. And that, I would say, is a perfect reason to start a side gig, not only so you can create other avenues of income, which does create more freedom, less dependence on one thing, but it also engages your mind and your heart and your soul. It engages you in different things so that you just have more than your identity as a dentist, right? And then go to the other end of the spectrum, which was me. And there are so many people who are living in silence this way. Is dentistry is making them really miserable. It's to the point where they don't feel like there's something wrong. They believe there's something wrong with them. And that's not always the case. Very successful people can be very unhappy in dentistry. It's just like, is it a fit or not? And so I think when you're on that spectrum, it's very difficult to imagine, if you love dentistry, that someone could possibly
reach out to you. They can reach out to you to talk about it, right? I mean, I'm going to talk to people can text Bees to 215-543-6454. I've connected people with you before, because I'm a big JBR, just be real type person. What's interesting to me, Laura, is if we went to a Mexican restaurant and we were eating nachos and I love the nachos and you said, Paul, I don't like them, it doesn't make me like them less. But for some reason in our dental community, when someone throws out a challenge like, hey, I don't love dentistry, sometimes people start banging back, well, it's a problem with you. And that is something I'm here to fight against. You can think dentistry is awesome. Dentistry is annoying. It's always exhausting. But people feel kind of isolated and something's wrong with them. And you help them see that there's a different world out there. And maybe it's doing 0% clinical dentistry, 50% clinical dentistry. In one of your successful side gig stories, what's something that someone's doing that you work with? Because I'm sure our audience is thinking, what are some of these side gigs? Give us 3 that you've seen people do.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So one of them I've shared with you before, and I love this. This is my client, Jenna. We helped her create a business from scratch where she is basically doing team building workshops modeled after those paint and sipping
that's cool
places. And it's so much fun. There's several people who are artists. We've had other people who become coaches. I have a client who left her like private practice. I can't remember if it was a DSO, but she went and did prison dentistry and also got a job with Colgate doing some sort of like clinical evaluations or research, but it's non-clinical, but she's able to use her clinical experience.
Awesome.
So it could range from anything. It could be a job, it could be self-employed, it could be creative, it could be non-clinical, it could be, I have a friend who has a whitening spa. She rents out a room in a spa, and she just does whitening in Invisalign and has an answering machine. She has no employees, well, probably voicemail by now, but so it really can be.
And that's such a cool thing to share. I mean, we don't have to do the same thing every day for our whole lives. Some people want to do that. Some people don't. And it's so great that you bring out these options. Your Facebook group, you're an amazing supporter and sponsor. I see people talking all the time in just super fun ways about their side gigs. And, your side gig could become your main gig, or you could have multiple side gigs. And, as we wrap up, Laura, you said something, because you're like me, you don't mind taking some arrows out there. You wrote that famous blog, 10 Reasons Your Dentist Might Not Like You Too. And you bring uncomfortable topics, to the surface for people to talk about. But maybe as we kind of finish, why do side gigs sometimes people help them like dentistry more, or help them see dentistry in a different way? Because not everyone goes from full clinical practice to no clinical practice. You kind of said, get a side gig to fall back in love with dentistry. Tell us more about that.
It goes back to that engagement. Is if you're not so dependent on dentistry, it'd be like if in a personal romantic relationship, if you're so dependent on this other person for your happiness, I mean, you would almost be seen as being a stalker or obsessive, right? And so we think about dentistry that way. We're depending on it for everything. When you add other things into your world, instead of dentistry being everything, it becomes a part of your.
And the one reason why you're sharing this, for people's own sanity, dentists become disabled, dentists get sick, there's problems, whether it's on your terms or not on your terms. If you let anything you do become too much of your identity, bad things can happen to you. And I love that you're bringing this to life. Many people on the Facebook group, and I love that they defend how much they like dentistry, but sometimes they go a little overboard. Like my grandmother went a little overboard with how smart I was. They say dentistry, Laura, is the greatest profession in the world. And then I say, how many other professions have you had? They say, none. I've had none other professions. I go, well, maybe your sample size is a little biased. So I think that what you're bringing to our community is having these uncomfortable conversations about where dentistry fits into your life. What do you have coming up next, for example? I know you have something exciting, so please share with us what you have coming up.
So excited for this. It's called Safari and Side Gigs. My friend Morris Mugo, who's a dental hygienist, has a very cool side gig. He takes people to his homeland in Kenya and does mission dentistry and CE trips. And we partnered. You see my little dog in the background?
Yeah, that's great.
That's Nola. She's my moderator. But Morris and I teamed up to take an African safari in Kenya. And it's going to be a really deep dive, immersive workshop where in between playing, we're going to be actually no mission dentistry. Like, not everybody wants to do that. And again, that's another thing I'm trying to normalize and validate, that it's okay if you don't want to do dentistry on your time off, right? Yeah. So what we're doing instead is pouring into you and really going through all the steps that I walk all of my clients through to design your life and career on your terms, like really for you. And it's going to be hanging out with the coolest people, doing the coolest things, and focusing on you. So I'm very excited.
Well, I love that you bring this fun to our world. Thanks for being my friend, most of all, and supporting us as a sponsor. Can't wait to see you at the next event. People can text Bees to 215-543-6454 to learn more about the awesome Laura and the Safari and Smiles. Thanks so much, Laura.
Thanks, Paul.